Oh, hi there. Welcome to Shogi in the West, an English language podcast for active Shogi players and Shogi learners around the world. In this podcast, we focus on the topics and the people that matter to those of us outside Japan trying to find our way in this game. And today's episode is going to be about time controls, the various time controls that we have available to us in Shogi, or possibly could have available to us in Shogi, and some discussion of clocks and playing with clocks. But before I get to that, as usual, I'd like to make the PSA, the public service announcement, that if you've heard or listened to this podcast in the past, you know that interviews are a large part of it. And if you would like to be interviewed, please let me know. I have almost no requirements for this, just that you be willing to put your face on the camera, put your first name out there, and then obviously your voice when you're talking. And that's it. Doesn't matter about rating. It doesn't matter about your experience. I would like to talk to you about Shogi regardless. So, I've gone through a list. I still have a couple names on the list of people that have expressed interest. I am not going to be asking people just so as not to put pressure on anybody. But, if you want to be on, please do. I really enjoy listening back to those episodes. I really enjoy doing those interviews because I want to hear someone other than myself talking about this stuff. Potentially people that are more knowledgeable, or potentially people that have new insights that I hadn't even considered. So again, if you're at all interested in this kind of thing, please let me know. Message me. You could put something in the comments. You can message me on the Discord, and you can email me at shogidad81@gmail.com. So, that out of the way, today's topic is something near and dear to my heart, which is time controls in Shogi. Time controls in any game I find to be rather interesting, but in Shogi in particular, I think it's a topic that has been discussed, and it seems like things may be over time not changing, but maybe evolving. And I would sort of hope it would evolve a little faster. Maybe I'm just a little too impatient there. But to start, I guess we'll go over the various time controls that are available to us, both in terms of Shogi and what people outside of Shogi are doing. So, in Shogi, for titled games, for regular club play, for tournaments, I'll say that the most common. I'll say the most common without knowing that this is actually the case. And as always, just preface this. I do not believe that I hold any unique insight to anything that I'm going to say here. I am bringing up the topics. I would love to hear more from people about their thoughts. I will give my thoughts, obviously, but I have no unique insight here. I don't think that I have any unique insight, and I do not believe that what I am saying is necessarily correct. I am saying what I currently think at the moment, but I am not saying that this is the absolute fact. It's what I currently think. It's my feelings on the subject, and I am always open to hearing what other people have to say and changing my mind. So that other caveat out of the way. In Shogi, I believe that the most common system that we use is, I suppose I'll just call it the Byoyomi system. This is the system where you have a main time bank, say 15 minutes, and you play your moves. Every move is, the time you take to make the move is taken out of that main time bank. When that main time bank elapses, you have a Byoyomi period, which is, say, typically 30 seconds, 40 seconds, or 60 seconds to make a move. And then that period is reset each time you make a move. So in an example, if you're going to play 15 minutes with 60-second Byoyomi, you'll have a main time bank. You'll play all your moves. Let's say you play your first 30 moves and your time bank elapses. So you have 0 minutes on your main time bank. Byoyomi kicks in. So you hit 0, and then all of a sudden depends on the type of clock, you'll hear a sound or an introduction to the Byoyomi period, and it will start counting up to the 60-second mark. So you have 60 seconds to make the move. You make your move, the opponent makes his move, and now you have 60 seconds again on your clock. You make your move within 60 seconds, your Byoyomi period is reset to 60 seconds. So you have a main time and then a Byoyomi period, and you will be able to make your move within that Byoyomi period's T number of seconds. So again, 1560. Every move you will have once the main time bank is elapsed, you'll have 60 seconds to make that move. And that's sort of, I'll get into the traditional versus cultural distinction later, but that is very common in the Shogi world, in the pro games. And it's on most of the sites, actually. Well, most of the sites. There is one app that I can think of that does not use Byoyomi or does not support it. But for the most part, Byoyomi is on all the sites. 81 Dojo, Shogi Club 24, Shogi Wars. And it's a very common time control. This was also the main time control. I'll say was, but this was the main time control in Go. A similar game in terms of sort of region where it's played, where it's traditionally an East Asian game, and Go was played with Byoyomi. And one of the main differences between, and it still is in certain places. One of the differences, though, is that Go games would typically have more than one Byoyomi period. So in Shogi, we play as I discussed it. We have one Byoyomi period. You make your move in 60 seconds. Your next move, you have to make in 60 seconds. Next move, you have to make in 60 seconds. With multiple periods of Byoyomi, you have your main time bank. So again, let's say, for example's sake, that we are playing 15 minutes with 5 periods of 60-second Byoyomi. You play all your moves, you're done with your 15 minutes, that main time has elapsed, and now you have your Byoyomi period. If you make your move you have 5 Byoyomi periods. If you make your move within 60 seconds, you will get your time back, and you still have 5 Byoyomi periods. If you make another move and it's within 60 seconds, you'll retain all those periods. So you will always have 5 periods of Byoyomi. You will lose on time if you elapse every single one of those Byoyomi periods. So that count of Byoyomi periods persists throughout the game. If you make your move within 60 seconds, you still have 5. But let's say on your next move, you take 1 minute and 20 seconds. You will lose one of your Byoyomi periods, so you'll hit 60 seconds, your Byoyomi period will go away, which means you now have 4 Byoyomi periods. You play the move within 20 seconds because your move took 1 minute and 20 seconds, and the 4th Byoyomi period is reset. So now you have 4 Byoyomi periods. Your opponent makes a move, and now it's your turn. You still have your 4 Byoyomi periods until the end of the game. So say you play your move in 60 seconds, you still have 4. You don't ever gain back Byoyomi periods. You can only lose the Byoyomi periods. But it allows you, at some point, if you so choose, to take up to 5 minutes. So you elapse your 15-minute time bank. Now with 5 periods of Byoyomi, you could theoretically play 4 minutes and 59 seconds of a critical move and say, I'm going to spend all my clock. So you spend 4 minutes and 59 seconds. You lose those first 4 periods of Byoyomi, and now you're stuck with 1 period of Byoyomi for the rest of the game. And then you would effectively be playing how we play in Shogi, which is 1 period. So it's a variation on Byoyomi and it allows a little bit more control to the player to manage tough time spots. So those are the two main Byoyomi time controls, if you will. Another popular time is simply absolute time, kiramake in Japanese. I believe, I don't know what it translates to, but I believe this is also called absolute time in the West, or game in X seconds. So you would say game in 10 minutes. That would be a 10-minute game. You only have a main time bank. You have no increment. You have no Byoyomi period. All your moves have to take place within this main time bank time. And if not, you lose. This is common on blitz sites a lot of times. Shogi Wars, Shogi Quest. Shogi Quest, I believe, exclusively has this Kiramake style where they have games where you can play in 10 minutes, in 5 minutes, and in 2 minutes. So very fast stuff. All your moves have to be made in that period of time. And this is, I assume this is the oldest and most historic time control, because without clocks, this is something you could conceivably do. Without digital clocks, this is the easiest. And it's okay. It's okay. I think some people. I've been told, I have not verified this myself because I've never played in a club in Japan. I've looked for one the long time ago when I was in Japan, but I have never witnessed this. But I believe a lot of people, even with real clocks, play this. I am told that this is a common thing. So people will play game in 20, game in 30, or 30-minute kiramake, which you could be reasonable. If you're at all decent at managing your time, you could conceivably play a quality game, I would say, in 30 minutes. And the level of play might go down as that clock time goes down. So there's that. A lot of people don't like this because of the time pressure, but we'll get into that. So Byoyomi with multiple periods, Kiramake, and now another one that is not, I don't want to say it's new, it's relatively new. It requires, as far as I know, it requires digital clocks. It requires more sophistication on the clock side, I'll just say. And that is Fischer increment, named after famous chess grandmaster Bobby Fischer. I assume he invented it. I don't know if it was actually prior art at some point. Someone had considered it. But regardless, this is a time control where you have a main time, and you have an increment time. So let's say a common time control would be 15 minutes main time with 10-second Fischer increment. What does that mean? That means you have 15 minutes, you make a move, and then after your move has been made, you increment the clock with the increment. So if you are playing, again, 15 minutes, and you take 7 seconds to make your move, you press the clock, you get back 10 seconds. So now what do you have? You have 15 minutes, and you have 3 seconds, 15 minutes and 3 seconds as your main time. You have increased your time. If you take more time, you lose some time, but you do get some back. So let's say it's a 15 minutes with a 10-second increment. You take 20 seconds on your first move. You will have 14 minutes and 40 seconds plus 10. So 14 minutes and 50 seconds. So you will lose 10 seconds. You spent 20 seconds thinking, but you gained 10 seconds back from the increment. So this allows you to do things like growing your time bank for obvious moves. It allows you to, as someone who might say know their openings really well, blitz out their openings and build up time. So, for example, let's just take this example again. 15 minutes with a 10-second increment. Let's say you have a six move opening just ingrained in your head, and you could play this out very quickly. So if you make your moves with no time, let's say you take basically no time to make your moves, you will have 16 minutes on your clock at the end of this first six moves. So 15 minutes, make your move, get 10 seconds back. Make your move, get 10 seconds back. Make your move, get 10. So you'll build up your clock and you'll have 16 minutes. You'll have more than you started with. And that way, a player can manage their clock. They have control over their clock to play to their strength. So if they know that they're strong in the opening but weaker in middle game, they can plan to have a bigger clock for the middle game. If they know, like if they're in the middle game and they know that their end game is weak, or that they know that they're very slow in the end game, but they're reasonable in the middle game, they could try to make moves more quickly in the middle game so that their end game has more time, so that their clock will have more time. And this is commonly used in chess. Naturally, it's not. Surprisingly, it's not for many high-level chess events. It's not used, or I don't think it's often used, or it's used as in conjunction with another time control. We'll get into that one, I suppose. I'm no expert in these, but I do know that over time, over the recent years, this time control has, I don't want to say taken over, but it has become prominent in the Go world. So I think the Korean Baduk League may have been the first big organization that implemented this. The Korean Baduk League has done that. The European Go Federation, I believe it is, EGF, has done this. They have switched to a Fisher increment as their sanctioned time control, I believe. The AGA, the American Go Association, I believe also has done this in recent years. And I'm sure there are many more. It's a lot of people like this. A lot of people don't like it. Anytime there's any change, there will be a contingent of people that just don't like it because it's change. But there are totally legitimate reasons to prefer one over the other, of course. But it does seem like this is taking over a lot of the Go scene, both at the amateur levels and at the pro levels. Fisher Time Control has a notable tournament that I'm aware of in Go. It's you call it tournament, I suppose. There is an Abema tournament, that team tournament that has been televised or made available on YouTube. I'll say I believe it's been televised on Abema, but regardless, it's available usually on the Abema channel. And one note, just to break out here. If anyone hears me mispronouncing things, so this is I don't want to say this is not a pet peeve of mine when I listen to podcasts, but occasionally there will be a podcaster I'll be listening to and they will mispronounce a word, and they will do it for many episodes, and and I'll be binging this podcast, say, long in the past. So it's possible the podcast may have actually been done by the time I listen to it. So I'm listening and just sort of binging the podcast. So I can't necessarily go and say, oh, you can pronounce it this other way. But, that becomes sort of an annoyance when you listen to a podcast. Like if every time this guy says ELO, for example, this is a current pet peeve of mine on a podcast I've listened to where he says ELO. he knows better. He should know better that it's not ELO. But it seems like nobody corrects him because I have not seen corrections in any of, and I've heard no mentions of it. So if I'm mispronouncing something, long story short, if I am mispronouncing something, Yoyomi, Abema, like you might hear me. I will sometimes say it twice. I'll say Abema, because I don't know which one it is. So I guess my brain is subtly trying to save face in some way by giving two options so that I'm right at least in half of them. And it's possible I'm wrong in both. So if Abema or any other words I am mispronouncing or pronouncing poorly, I would love to know. I would love to be able to speak this language better. And this language being the language of Shogi, but the language of English as well. So if someone has those comments, don't feel like you're going to sound like a pedantic jerk, because I will not think that. I will take any of these suggestions to heart, and I will listen to them genuinely. So please, I do not judge. I do not judge. So thank you for that in advance. But anyway, back to it. This Abema tournament has videos available on YouTube, and they use Fisher time. It's like a 5-minute, I think I've seen it where it's a 5-minute main time and a 7-second Fisher increment. And they're great matches. I think it's just great sport to watch these games. They are really enjoyable. Yes, they're fast, but some of them are not so fast. 5 minutes with 7 seconds can get you can build up quite a bit of a time bank. There was a game I was watching, I believe it was Watanabe versus Satomi. I believe she was Satomi at the time. And she may have had like 7 minutes after the opening. He might have had like 7.5, 6 minutes, 45 seconds. I don't recall the details, but they were blitzing out their opening, as seems to me to be somewhat reasonable. If anyone has watched Go or Shogi professional games, you realize there's a lot of slack time in those openings where they're making their first move and they're staring up at the ceiling. The moves haven't even been made, or one move has been made, and they're staring up at the ceiling. They're getting their tea. They're making pensive faces, and it's like, okay, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You've prepared for these games. You know what you're doing. You know the responses. But they think about these moves, and it adds to the theater. But we'll get into that. So anyway, Fisher time control. It has made some strides in the Go world. It has made some small movement into the Shogi world, at least into the Abema tournament or event, which is, I don't want to call it an exhibition, but sort of it's an exhibition level event, it seems like. The NHK Cup is another sort of made for TV kind of title. It's a big title. I don't think that that's Fisher. As I'm saying this, I don't think that that's Fisher increment, but it's possible that it is. Anyway, so there's that. And I'll mention another time control. The Go world, I don't believe, uses this. The Shogi world, I don't believe, has ever used this. But it is relatively common, it seems like, in slow classical time control tournaments in chess, both amateur level and at the pros. It is where you have a main time bank. You have, say, 2 hours. You have to make 40 moves in 2 hours. And then potentially, I believe you have another bank given. So you have 2 hours to make 40 moves. Once you make your 40th move, you're then given this extra time. You say 30 minutes, and you have to make like 20 moves or something like that in that amount of time. And And after that, you are just living on, I believe, delay or something like that, where you have these periods. I think I've seen multiple different takes on this, and so I don't think there's one uniform one, but except for just that main part of 40 moves in 2 hours. So it's very confusing. I think it's confusing to spectators. It's confusing to talk about. As far as I hear on podcasts where professionals have talked about this, they don't particularly love this. Some seem to, but most don't. It's just kind of weird. You would think you have some control, but you really don't. There's a time scramble at the 2-hour mark, and then you go to the bathroom, and then there might be a time scramble after, and there's that, and there's that. So I'll mention that, if only to say I am glad we don't have this in Shogi. I'm glad that I don't think it's ever been in Go, and I would hope that it would be removed from chess personally. But whatever. I mentioned it in the description of this. There's a delay component. There are other systems that are similar to Byoyomi, but different. And I'll mention one which is, I don't know if it's typically called US delay. I've seen it called US delay. There is Bronstein delay as well, and I don't believe they are exactly the same. And before the stream, I tried to get, or before the podcast, I tried to get a good summary of the differences, and I was getting confusing responses. And so I'll just talk about US delay, because this effectively is the one that I've seen implemented on Shogi Club 24. There is a time control called Short 3, which introduces delay. So delay is, you have a delay increment or a delay period, similar to Byoyomi. Let's say it's 30 seconds. You have a delay period, and then you have a main time bank, say 1 minute. And the way this works is that every move, you have 30 seconds to make that move. If you make your move in that delay period, on your next move, that period will be refreshed. So you always have 30 seconds. If your delay is 30, you always have 30 seconds to make your move. And that main time bank will not be touched until you take more than 30 seconds on a move. So let's say you play your opening. You play all your opening moves in 5 seconds, let's say. You will still, at the end of 20 moves, you will still have your 30-second delay and your 1 minute time bank. Let's say you get to a tricky situation in the middle game and you spend 45 seconds on it. So 30 seconds delay until the time starts ticking, and then the time starts ticking out of your main time bank. You lose 15 seconds out of there. That means your main time bank is 45 seconds, and then you move to the next move. Your main time bank will still be 45 seconds. You will have 30 seconds to make your move, and if you don't spend 30 seconds, your main time bank will remain at 45 minutes. So it's a way to guarantee a certain number of time per move, similar to Byoyomi, but unlike Byoyomi, where the main time bank is front-loaded, you don't have to use that main time bank. You can choose to spend your time how you want in the positions that you would like. So it's similar, but it's rather different in actual usage. And especially as you grow that main time bank in size. This is how many pro chess games, I believe there are many pro chess events and certainly many amateur chess events that use this, or that use this time control. So, I think a common classical control that I hear people playing a lot of is 90 minutes, game in 90, with a 10 second delay. That means you have 90 minutes main time. You have 10 seconds to make every move. Your main time bank will not be touched if you spend under 10 seconds. So, in a way, this is this is both a way to control your time, and it's a way to guarantee that you won't get dirty flagged. Dirty flagged being you run out on dirty flag. For anyone who doesn't know, I am using this phrase. I don't know if this is the actual stated definition of it, but dirty flag would be in a losing position, in a completely losing position. You force a number of moves to be played such that your opponent times out. So if I see that there's a checkmate on the board, let's say that I have a minute on my clock and my opponent has 2 seconds on their clock, and I see that the opponent is going to beat me if they have a move, but I have some pieces in hand. So I drop a pawn on the king's head. That's one move. The king takes it. That's one move for the opponent. I drop another pawn on the king's head. The king has to take. That's another move. And then I drop a silver on the king's head. The king just takes. And then I drop a knight to do another check. And now the opponent runs out of time. So that would be a dirty flag, where in a hopeless situation, I have a time advantage and I just kind of play moves that will force the opponent to time out. So that's that. So a delay prevents that. If you have 10 seconds delay in a 90-second main bank, even if you use all your 90 minutes, you still will always have 10 seconds to make a move. Or you not use all 90 minutes. You use 89 minutes and 59 seconds. You will still have 10 seconds per move so that you can physically make your move, either online or off. And that I think this is people seem to like this a lot. It's predictable, and it's easy to understand. It's very easy to understand. And I guess this is a time at which I can go into what I perceive to be the pluses and minuses of these. I spent a lot of time just describing, and I'm very slow, so I apologize for taking so much time to explain these. But before getting into the discussion of what's better, but I think both since I've discussed delay last and Byoyomi first, I'll kind of wrap those two and get into some of the downsides or the criticisms of both. One of the main criticisms of Byoyomi is that people will use, if you are given 30 seconds per move, people will use 30 seconds per move, regardless of if they need it or not. So this is a common thing in Go. It's a common thing in Shogi, where there is an obvious move on the board. You know what the move you're going to do. So let's say there's a take, and it's a forced take back. You know what you're going to do. There is only one move. You still take 30 seconds on the clock because you start reading a different position on the board. You're calculating other things. And so you will always have, you'll always be, if players are using their clock, they will always be spending the time, whether or not they need it. So you're forced almost to think in terms of you're forced to think in blocks of the Byoyomi time. And you are almost at a disadvantage if you don't spend the time. So games will go on longer than they need to be. And you're thinking and you're processing based on hypothetical positions that might happen. So rather than reacting to what is on the board or what the opponent has done, you're responding to the theoretical position of what the opponent is going to do in the future. So in this example that I've given, where there is only one move and it is a take. Let's say your king takes, they drop a gold on your head, your king takes. You are looking at a position, you're like, okay, well, after my king takes, he could drop his bishop here. He could drop his bishop there. he could move his rook. So you're not even thinking about the board. You're not even thinking about the actual state of the board. You're spending in a 60-second Byoyomi, you're spending 59 seconds basically theory crafting what the opponent is going to do and what you're going to do in response. So, yeah, you're thinking about the position, but you're actually not thinking about the game. You're thinking about a hypothetical version of the game. And I think that's a criticism of it that I've heard. And, people being able to delay a game for a long time simply by it's very easy to make a lot of moves for the most part in Shogi. So you can make a game go very long by playing every move at the Byoyomi time. I've played a 200 plus move game on Shogi Club 24 with 60-second Byoyomi, and the game ended up over 2 hours and 20 minutes. That's not the end of the world, but that's a long time. That's a long time. And I'm not blaming my opponent because I was spending a lot of time on the Byoyomi and on the Byoyomi period. And I think it's fair in one way because it allows the opponent to always have time to think about difficult positions, but it's suboptimal because of the fact that people are almost obligated to take 30 seconds or the full time control. Otherwise, you're not thinking about the game as much. And I personally don't think it's fun for viewers to watch that. And I don't think it's as fun playing. Some people say it's better for playing versus watching. I don't think it's the greatest for either. Because, yes, there is a cadence to the game, and there's a flow of the game of each person taking that time. But there's so much theory crafting in there of what the opponent is going to do. Maybe I'm just not creative enough, but I think I would rather be playing the board. I'd rather be playing the board. So, I don't enjoy it as much, even though it is our main time control. I like it. Don't get me wrong. It's better than flat Kiramake or game in, X number of seconds, absolute time or sudden death as people call it too. It's better than sudden death time control. But I think it's unsatisfying for me to say the least. I'm probably a minority decision in this. I've read a lot about this from the Go days. I've definitely discussed this with people in Shogi. Some people love it, but I think that's a limitation in that people will spend a lot of time regardless of whether or not they need it. I think it also has another downside, which is, so its upside, I think, is simply that you cannot be flagged, you can't be dirty flagged, and you will always have at least some amount of time to think about your move. Like those are positives. Those are definitely positives. But I think the downsides overwhelm the positives. So the first downside that I mentioned, now a second downside, which is the main time bank feels rather inconsequential or in some way somewhat irrelevant, unless you just blow it out to be very long, which is what they do in pro games. Many high-level pro games where I think some of the top titles might even have a 9-hour main time with a 60-second Byoyomi. And sometimes they still get into Byoyomi, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, if you're an amateur, you're playing the game, you're playing, let's say, 15-minute main time with a 60-second Byoyomi or a 40-second Byoyomi. You're playing your opening, you're just making your moves, you're not rushing. You kind of lose a bunch of your main time. It's like the main time was almost irrelevant. Like, why even have a main time? So let's say you spend 20 seconds per move or thereabouts, 15 to 20 seconds per move. You're not playing fast, but you're not playing slowly. You're in the middle game, and you've got like 5 minutes left on your clock or 7.5 minutes on your clock, which means you barely have any time for a long think. Let's say you get to a couple critical positions, and now you don't have much time. And it's like, why don't I have much time? I had a 15-minute time bank. Well, maybe because I didn't rush my opening. So the next game, you just rush out your opening and you get your main time bank. Your main time bank is high. And now maybe you don't get those positions, those super hairy positions until the end game. And now you still don't have a long time to think. So I guess the point I'm getting at is that the main time bank is often somewhat irrelevant in Byoyomi, and you don't have good control over it. You don't know when you sit down to play a game of Shogi, you don't know when your critical moves are going to be. You don't know if it's going to be in the middle game. You don't know if it's going to be a bunch of moves in the end game. You don't know if it might be in the opening. You don't know. So you almost can't prepare for it with a Byoyomi style, because that main time bank, it is going to elapse. It will elapse because every move is being taken away from it. And so you're going to find yourself at the end where you just have your Byoyomi period, and you'll never be able to have a long think again. So I think for that reason alone, it's just a suboptimal time control. You don't have enough control over how you want to play. I think what the Go world used to have, or still has, I think the multiple periods of Byoyomi are a nice change, or are not change, but are a nice improvement on this. And I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think any Shogi events use multiple periods of Byoyomi. This, I think, would address, in large part, one of those problems. I don't think it addresses it in the best way, but it addresses it and does improve on the situation, because you still will have control over your Byoyomi periods. Like if you play 15 minutes with 5 periods of Byoyomi, that means even if you have a long, slow game and you get out of your main time bank, you still have the option to have some long thinks in critical times. So a long think is relative to the person, but let's say you're in the late middle game, your time bank is gone, and you get a tough spot. It's like, okay, well, I can think 1 minute and 59 seconds for this one move, and I'll still have 4 Byoyomi periods at the end. So you can have a bunch of long thinks, 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and you're not forced to make your move in a single Byoyomi period. I think that would be a huge improvement for Shogi. If people insist on playing with Byoyomi, I think that is a huge improvement to the Byoyomi system, giving control for those long thinks. And in the end, it does not add a lot of time to the overall sort of wall clock time of a game. Because those Byoyomi periods, if they're not used, well, they don't. It's like they didn't exist. So they don't add to the main wall clock time of the game. If they are used, at most they're going to add n-1 times the time period. So if you're playing with 5 Byoyomi periods, which is a lot, I think a lot of people will play with like 3. But if you play with 5 Byoyomi periods of 60 seconds, all you're adding for one player, if you use all your Byoyomi periods, overall wall clock time of the game only increases by 4 minutes. So it's still predictable-ish. It's no less predictable than a game of Byoyomi. And I think all the other benefits are given to the players. It doesn't hurt observing the game all that much, because if a player, I think, is going to spend a lot of time in a critical position, then viewers would like to spend more time in a critical position. Unlike the one period Byoyomi, where viewers are forced to watch those 60 seconds regardless if it's a critical position, because the players are going to use it. Even if they don't need it, even if it's not a critical position, they're going to use it. So it's a little less satisfying there. I honestly, I think Fisher addresses the Fisher time increment, time control addresses these problems. I think it does a great job because it gives control to the player. So you would typically play Fisher time controls with a smaller main time and a smaller increment to get to the same wall clock time as, say, a Byoyomi game, an equivalent Byoyomi game. But regardless, the player has control. You will still not be dirty flagged. You time Sujis, if you've heard that, sort of time tactics. Well, those are a tactic in Byoyomi as well, but they are a little more effective in Fisher as the increment gets smaller. But the player themselves has control of the time. So if, like I said earlier, if you're someone who knows their openings really well, you can blitz those out, build up a main time bank, prepare your time usage for the moments that you will struggle with. And obviously, no one is going to have perfect vision to see how the game is going to go in the end. But this gives you more flexibility. It gives you more control. At the end of the game, when moves are obvious, obvious, air quotes, you can make your move quickly, build up the time for a position that's actually on the board, rather than Byoyomi, which is, as I described earlier, for obvious moves, you're thinking about a different part of the board. I think the example that I've seen given in Go is where it's like, you're playing a Joseki, but you're playing a Joseki that both players know they're going to play. Excuse me. And this Joseki, because it's 60-second Byoyomi, is going to take 5 minutes to play out, or 5 minutes, or 10 minutes to play out in actual wall clock time. But during that 10 minutes, neither player is actually looking at that area of the board that the Joseki is played in. They're looking somewhere else to see what's going to be happening once this Joseki is completed. And that's kind of, I don't want to say it's a contrived example, and it certainly plays to the discussion, but I think it is true, and to a certain extent, it's true in Shogi as well, where you're playing hypothetical board. You're in your mind, you're considering hypothetical board positions more than you're considering what is actually played. And some might say, I think I might, though I haven't thought too much about it, some might say, I don't enjoy doing that. I want to play more, I don't want to be theory crafting in my games. I want to be playing my games. And, for spectators, it's difficult too. It's really difficult. And for commentators, not that we have any commentators in the English language, world for pro games, but like, the commentators have to be coming up with ideas. And maybe this is part of the fun sometimes watching, but like you're coming up with what could happen? What could happen? For 10 minutes while this other thing is happening, while this sort of other obvious result is taking place on one side of the board, what is going to happen? And I don't find that too much. It's in the spirit of the game, but only slightly because it is a game. I think in the end, it's just not as fun as directly playing the game. And that saying the word fun brings up a quote. It brings up this. So I pulled out a quote from a professional, like at the time was that, and I think he still may be. I don't know much about the Go Pro world. At the time, he was the number one player, Shinjin So. He has a quote here, and I've got it. Although the Fisher system, this is translated, of course, although the Fisher system may cause careless mistakes, it is necessary to consider the fun of Go. The original Byoyomi system will reduce the fun if time is fully allocated. So, if every player takes their full Byoyomi period. The Fisher system is reasonable, and I think that's key. I think that's key. Is that these are games. They're made to be fun, and I think it's simply more fun and more in spirit of the game to be playing the moves and not to be playing the clock. So in that way, I think another argument can be made, and I would make it, that stepping back, why do we play with clocks? Why do we play with clocks? Is it to win on time? No. It's to keep the pace of the game going. It's as unobtrusively as possible. As the game will be played, we want to keep the action going. You need to force people to make moves. You want to make people make moves, because otherwise you'll just take forever, and the games will go on for multiple days. So you want people to make moves, but you want to do it in such a way that the clock is as little bit of a participant in the result as possible. And I think in that way, Fisher time control is less obtrusive on the game than Byoyomi is, because Byoyomi almost forces a style of play where you spend all the time that you have. It becomes a part of the play. It dictates when you think. It dictates sort of how you can think in chunks of time. Whereas Fisher, you make your moves and you have enough time based on how much time is left. You make your moves in a time. Yes, you can also do things to try to take advantage of the clock. I think that's just, it's going to be there, but I think it is less obtrusive, less invasive on the game than Byoyomi is, where Byoyomi feels like an active participant in the game. And it's something that you have no control over. It just is. With one period of Byoyomi, it just is. And sometimes you just won't have enough time to think about the position. You're going to lose on time, even if it's not because of just the clock elapsing. You're going to lose because some positions you just may have too many choices, and you won't have any way to deal with it other than just think you're 59 seconds and then pray that you found a move. So I think that is a key. Delay now. So talking about Fisher, I said that there is where do we play Fisher? Shogi Club 24 has this fast or short 3 time control, which is 5 minutes and 5 second Byoyomi, I believe it is. It's good. It's good. If this was the main time control on Shogi Wars, as I've said before many times, this is all I would play. This is the only time control I would play online, outside of training for slower games. But like main time on Shogi Wars, I would never play 10 minutes again. I would only play 5 plus 5. I would never play 3 minutes again. I would never play 10 second Byoyomi again. I would just play 5 plus 5 because it's fast. The games will go, I believe, shorter wall clock time than a 10-minute game. But you're not going to get dirty flagged. You don't have that time. You have time crunch, but you don't have that just absolute time crunch where you're winning. You've got 2 minutes left on your clock. Your opponent has 5 minutes. And now the game is, can I mate? Can I convert in 2 minutes? And often for me, as a slow, older person, the answer will be no. I can't convert. The opponent can do enough such that I'm simply going to elapse my clock and I'm going to lose. And that's the way it is. So that's available on Shogi Club 24. Fisher is. It's also available on this. I believe it's called Crossfield. There is a Shogi app where you can play online. Darn it! I checked it before the stream. My dumb brain doesn't. I didn't make a note of it. So my dumb brain is not remembering it. But it's you can. There is only one time control on Crossfield playing online, as far as I have ever seen. it's not the optimal, it's not a good Fisher time control because I think it's a little slow, for an online game. I think it's like, it might even be a 30-second Byoyomi. It's a large Byoyomi if I remember correctly. But anyway, or it's a large Fisher increment if I remember correctly. But it exists. It exists. It's not like as good as 5+5. It exists, and I think that's about it. Lee Shogi supports it, as far as I remember. Lee Shogi supports Fisher for playing. Not too many people play it on Lee Shogi, but it does support it, which is nice. And yes, and I've tested it out there. Their clock implementation, I don't want to go into this, but the way it doesn't make sounds that I like kind of ruins it for me. And I won't say any more about that, but it's available on Lee Shogi if you're interested in playing there. Delay, though, the delay time control, which I really love. I would, as far as, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but if there was a choice between delay and Byoyomi, I am going to say that I would always choose delay over Byoyomi. But it's just, it doesn't matter because it's not available anywhere except, again, Shogi Club 24, where there is another time control. It's called Short 2. So Short 3 is Fisher, Short 2 is delay, and it is a 30-second delay with a 60-second main time. So it's, that those sound like low numbers, but it's not. I don't know if it's the equivalent of 10 minutes, 30-second Byoyomi, but just thinking out loud, I think that's probably about how the time of the games, because most people are not going to use any of their main time bank in this delay in the opening. So you're going to play all your moves within 30 seconds. Each of your moves is going to take less than 30 seconds in the opening. And when people are playing online anyway, and I would guess that this would be the same even over the board, unlike Byoyomi where it comes at the end and you're almost forced to take all the time, people generally, it seems, won't take all their time in the opening, where maybe pros would. But when you're playing online, people just make their moves. They're not spending 29 seconds for move 1, 29 seconds for move 2, et cetera, et cetera. So those games go pretty quickly, and I'm guessing that's why Shogi Club 24 calls it a short time control, because the games can go very quickly. But if you're someone who likes to think, from your side, you can manage it. You can manage it really nicely. So there's that. What else? What else do we have to say? I don't know. I think that's really it. I haven't gone as deep into some of my thoughts. I see it's already 58 minutes, and so I'll basically leave it there and maybe come back to this. I would love to hear your thoughts on these time controls. I've had discussions of the time controls with people, and they've always been lively, fun discussions. One thing that I haven't gone into is the impact of culture. And because one of the last times I discussed this with people on my stream, someone had brought up the culture argument, that Byoyomi is part of the Shogi culture. And they caught me off guard, because in my mind, I feel like Shogi should be switching to Fisher, or delay, but should be switching to Fisher time controls, because as far as I'm concerned, time control is a side topic. It's an implementation detail for these games. It's not part of the game. The game is Shogi. The game is not clock. The game is not pushing clocks. So to me, while it may be traditional or just out of habit, it might be byoyomi. I don't think of that as the culture of the game. I think of the game as the culture of the game. But this other person said it, and it really made me think. And I think in the end, I still think that it's more traditional than cultural, and it doesn't impact the culture of shogi to improve the time control. But it would change things. For example, with Fisher time, effectively the players would have to push their own buttons. And that isn't how it's been in title matches. In title matches, there is a score, there's a timekeeper, and that person counts counts the byoyomi periods. So I suppose you could say that that's a cultural aspect to the game, one that is somewhat nice. Go seems to have done fine going away from that. But it is something, I guess, that would be lost. I'm willing to acknowledge that when you think about title games, if that having that timekeeper, doing the ich ni san, that might be lost. The clocks will say it. The Citizen Meijin Sen DIT 40 and DIT 50 at least clocks will speak out the byoyomi. I believe the older ones will as well. So even if you switch to Fisher, it would still do the counting on the clock. So it's not like it would be totally lost, but I sort of think that people should manage their own clocks anyway. It is 2025, but just because it's 2025, that's not necessarily a great argument of breaking tradition or culture. But that argument is there. But again, this is something that came from a viewer that I hadn't even considered. So I would love to hear what you all have to say. And I know, because I've read these discussions in the Go world of people feeling strongly one way or the other. I don't necessarily feel super strongly for one or the other, but I am, if this makes convince, I don't feel super strongly about one or the other, but I am rather convinced that one is better than the other, and one would be more fun generally than the other. And but those ideas are always open for debate. So I will leave the time control discussion here. Hopefully this has not been too plodding and too tedious. And I hope I have given fair play to each of these time controls, each of these possible time controls that we have available to us. And let me know if I haven't. Let me know if I have. Let me know your thoughts, please. One of the other topics, because I did not expect this time control to take an hour. So I was planning on secondary topics. And so I will leave this just as a question for next time. I will leave this as a question for a future podcast. I would love to hear what you have to say, and I'll respond to this in a future podcast. But do you enjoy playing with clocks? Do you play with clocks at your local club? I think that's what I want. I would love to discuss that. As anyone who has listened to my streams know, I play at a variety of clubs in the Bay Area, some more than the others. But every week I play at one club where we will play with clocks. Generally, we will play with clocks. For 3 years, I've been going there, and we almost have always played with clocks. There have been new members, new beginners that have come, and one of them is now getting quite good. But we still have some other beginners that are growing. But once the beginners started coming, we put the clocks aside just to be a little less intimidating. But the clocks have come back now because we started taking too much time without clocks. And this is playing without clocks is something that I haven't even addressed yet. And I could talk at length. I could go another hour talking about this topic, but So that club we play with a mix of clock and no clock. There's another club which has generally more serious players, and we play with 5 minutes in 40-second byoyomi. So they're relatively quick games, but it's slow enough to still be relatively high quality. So we get in some quality games, but we have a guaranteed mix where you're going to play everyone there, or you're going to be able to play the people if you want to play, you're going to be able to play a variety of players because the games rotate. It's a 4-hour event. It's once a month. And with 5-minute, 40-second byoyomi games, you get a lot of games. And it works out really nicely. There's another club, the club that's nearest to me, that has a good mix of beginners. And now these players seem to have gotten quite good. And but they mostly still play without clocks. And so, it's a totally different feel between all three. So I am curious what you all do in terms of playing with clocks and what you prefer to do. What you do and what you would prefer to do. I would love to hear this and talk about this in the future. So that said, I think I'll leave it for here. This is, as I mentioned in the opening, a subject near and dear to my heart. I nerd out on these clock decisions and these clock discussions. I don't know why. I love equipment. I love the clocks as part of the game. I'm convinced that the time controls we play at are not optimal. Having played, not that this is any huge amount of games, but I've played, I'll say 4,000 to 5,000 games of Shogi. And I have my tastes after that. And I think we can do better. Whether or not we will ever change is another story. But I think it's worth talking about because the Go world has changed. I think they have improved. And I would love to see maybe some movement in the Shogi world, or at least more discussion around it. So thanks, everybody, as always, for listening to the podcast. If you haven't, please check out all the other episodes. And please remember to like and subscribe. It sounds like nothing, but it does mean something to me to know that people are watching these and they're enjoying them. It also, I believe, if the information out there is to be believed, that it does help the algorithm, and maybe we'll get more people getting Shogi put in their faces. Maybe we'll be able to grow the community a little bit more, get more people thinking about Shogi, get more people exposed to Shogi, and that's really it. So thank you, everybody. I will be back next week, and enjoy your Shogi. So take care, have fun. This is a fun game. I tell it to myself, if only to convince myself, as I'm struggling through plateaus and pits of my playing, that it is a fun game. I think clocks and good time controls can make it an even more fun game. So thank you, everybody. Long-winded. I love talking to you all. I love discussing this stuff with you all. So please, let's talk. And again, if you want to be interviewed and you'd like to talk about subjects like this on the podcast, please contact me. Discord, YouTube comments, shogidad81@gmail.com. I'll leave it. Thanks again. Take care. Bye.